gets really loud at first, doesn't it? Sorry. Good evening, everybody. How is everybody doing today? All right, awesome. We got a lot of new faces in here again. That's really cool. Can everybody hear me okay? All right, so tonight we are actually going to have 3 speakers. Miss Magda is going to come on. She's going to do the law of gender and the law of relativity, correct? After Magda, Luke is going to come and he is going to share transgender male story, and then after Luke we will have Barbara and she will share a transgender female story, and then Miss Magda will come back and lead us in our meditation. I'd like everybody to go take a deep breath in. I feel a lot of tensity, so we're going to take 2 more, okay? Just not in a bad way. Let's really just relax and give thanks that we took time to our spiritual nature, our spiritual selves. If everybody would like to go ahead and bow their head in prayer with me. Lord, Mother, Father, Source, Creator of all life, we give thanks, we rejoice in this moment. May we sit with a listening ear and a heart and mind that discerns, for all that speak and for all that listen. Bless in our hearts with the grace of your love, your unity, and the law of one. Thank you, and so it is. All right, Miss Magda, if you would welcome yourself to the stage. Thank you, Malaite.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here. And tonight I'm going to speak on the law of relativity and the law of gender. Can you hear me now? Can you see me now? That's okay. So I'm going to speak on the law of relativity first. So according to Eckhart Tolle and the book New Earth and Nikola Tesla, it says nothing in life has meaning unless we give it energy. The things that trigger us goes back to childhood and other lifetimes. If something triggers us, we have a choice of being upset about it or seeing the gift. You can choose either way. Change your thought and change your life. We are the creators, so we choose. So choose well. So let's say that in energy, it's the pros and cons, right? Light and dark. And it says also that it's a reminder that everything is BS. And I think you guys are going to think I'm going to say bullshit, right? No. It's a belief system. And everything is mental and everything is connected. So this law of relativity, how does it apply to us in the work that we do spiritually within? Right? Cause and effect, light and dark. You choose at all times the way you want your life to go. Nikola Tesla said, if you want to understand the universe, think of frequency, sound, vibration. Emotion is energy in motion. So it's relative, light and dark. Watch our thoughts. If we think negative, it can spiral out of control like a domino effect. Said nothing in life has meaning unless we give it energy. Goes back to triggers, right? So if something happens to us, we can look at it as a gift or the most horrible thing that ever happened to us. Either way, you're right. But it's how you look at it and how you apply it to your life. So you could be stressed or you could be at peace with it. Everything's connected. We're all connected. And we have a conscious belief that the way we're programmed from when we're young, it's like this is supposed to happen, especially if you grew up very religious. I grew up Catholic, and it says everything that happens, we're supposed to happen. We're poor, we're supposed to be poor. Well, I saw a lot of malarkey, because whatever happens in our life, we have the power to change it. So that's where the relativity comes in. And it says each person will receive, this is when we're born, each person will receive a series of problems, tests of initiation, lessons, for the purpose of strengthening the light within each of these tests, to be a challenge and remain connected to our hearts when proceeding to solve the problem. This law teaches us to compare our problems to others. So the law of relativity is that when something's happening to us, and if we think somebody else has it worse, that's the law of relativity. So when we see it like that, and we say, wow, my life, it's really screwed up, my back is messed up. Then we could pick up a newspaper or look at the TV, and somebody's laying in a bed, quadriplegic, that would give anything to have what we have. That's the law of relativity. It's seeing life from a different point of view. You either sink or swim. I choose to swim. So whatever happens in our lives is just lessons. It's that everything in our life is just is until we compare it to something. That's what I was just saying. Nothing in life has any meaning except for the meaning that we give it. We think it's messed up. I'm not cursing today. If we well, fuck it then. So if we think it's messed up, it's messed up. So are you guys getting the gist of the law of relativity? Okay. So I'm going to go on now to the law of gender. According to Hermetic teachings, it is law number 7 in the Kabbalion. Anybody ever heard of the Kabbalion? From the Kabbalah? From the Kabbalion philosophy of ancient Egypt and Greece. Gender is an illusion. Beyond it, we are pure light. And energy is the separation. It's also essential to experience the contrast, which is needed for our expansion. It is both positive and negative. The male pushes outside of himself as the fiery force. The female draws into herself. She resides in the subconscious mind. Gender is in everything. It has its masculine and its feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. It is always at work. Gender is always generating in nature. Animals and humans, we are all born male and female, but we are not born masculine or feminine. We have both. So there's both residing in us. So let's break it down. Masculine energies, they reason, they have logic, they're very analytical in thought. They have the drive and the will to do things. They are left brain. Females are creative. They have intuition. Like a mom will tell her kid, no, don't do this, because they feel it. That's intuition. They have imaginative thought. They have empathy, and females are right brain. So talking of gender, every human has both. Every human has a mixture of both. A man will be more intuitive or creative and not have much drive to do things. So he is not getting in touch with that drive to do things, because now he's in touch with something else. Or a man will be more intuitive or creative and not have much drive to do things, right? So does that make him a woman? Absolutely not. He's just getting in touch with that side. A woman can also be logical, great at planning things, but not much creativity to make anything new. I'm not talking about sexually. or feeling like a woman or a man inside. What I'm saying is that human nature does not lean toward gay or straight. It is really about emotions. That we are leaning toward it does not make us gay or straight. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Talk about soul connection. So gender exists in each other, but the contrast is needed for the creation of life, whether it's human or most life forms. You need the male and the female to make a life. So the male pushes, the woman receives. So there's a quote here from the Kabbalion that says, the tendency of feminine principles is always in the direction of receiving impressions, while the tendency of the masculine principle is always in the direction of giving out or expressing. So when you have a man that, we call him metrosexual nowadays, right? Oh, he's metrosexual, maybe he's gay, because he's in touch with those sides of the woman, right? He's intuitive, he's very caring, like a mother. So he's in touch with that. So the point here is to always be mindful, and I can't do that because I'm a girl, or a man is like, well, sure, I can't cry, I can't hold, because that's not a manly thing to do. No, it's about being mindful and being in touch with both sides of us, to be able to have balance, because when you're too much into the masculine and you don't get in touch with none of the feminine side, you're not balanced. So it's about balancing your life. It's like today, okay, I want to go help Teresa build a house. She's good. So she's in touch with that feminine, I'm using you. She's in touch with that feminine side, but she's also in touch with her masculine side, where if she wants to do something, she doesn't wait for nobody to do it for her. She just go ahead and she does it. So that's what this laws of gender, to me, that's what it means. It means that we are creative. I want to have a baby. I can't go with a woman and have a baby. I got to go with a man and have a baby, right? That's why I had a woman have some for me. And that's my daughter right there.
Welcome to the world.
That's what I told her when I first held her. So I'm going to leave you guys with that, give it some thought. Do you have any question before I leave the podium? No, okay. So it's all about being mindful and staying in touch with both sides of us. Learn to just enjoy life and not care what anybody thinks, because other people's opinions is none of our business. It's what makes us happy in the moment. Harming none, right? That's the witch's creed, right? All right, thank you. I thought you were going to do that. No? Okay, so when I was asked to do this talk, I'm sitting at home and I'm, studying and reading stuff, and I'm like, all right, so laws of gender, men and women, how would this be applied to a gay person, a transgender man, a transgender woman? So I was talking to Lois, and Lois says, why don't you go to Metro? They have speakers there and all that stuff. And I'm like, oh, thank you. So the next day I called, and they directed me to Mr. Lucas. And he works at the health part of the center? Right, so I went there, I met with him, and he was kind enough to agree to come and speak to us from that perspective. So, welcome to the podium, Lucas.
Hello everybody. Can you hear me okay? Alright, there we go. So my name is Lucas. I'm Lucas Wheely. I'm the Trans Services Division Manager at Metro Inclusive Health. Has anybody heard of Metro before? We used to be Metro Wellness and Community Centers. No? Okay. So we have a location in St. Pete. That's our main location. We're in Tampa, we're in Clearwater, and in Newport Richey. So we mainly provide services to the community living with HIV and the LGBT community. So what I do is I have a division that is a department that's entirely committed to serving the trans community and all the needs that that the trans community has regarding their health services and any other resources or programs or support that we can offer them through groups, anything like that. So I'm going to share a little bit of my story tonight and how gender roles kind of affected my life prior to and after my transition. So I'm a trans man, so I was assigned female at birth, but I identify as male. And so I didn't come out until I was 18, 19. I didn't come out to my parents or my family until I was 19. And up until then, it was literally like a screaming battle every single day of my life of what I had to wear and the expectations that my family, specifically my mom and my sister, had instilled on me because I was a woman, right? I was expected to dress like a lady. I was expected to wear a dress. I was expected to wear makeup and be feminine, and I was never, ever any of those things. So it was really problematic for me, especially when it came to a point in my life where it was unacceptable for them to, or they felt it was unacceptable for me to be presenting in a masculine way, which is really what I chose when I had the opportunity to choose. So my teenage years, like 14, 15, were like probably the worst, where literally I was not allowed to go anywhere to any family function without wearing the new dress that my mom had bought me. And it wasn't like not going was an option. So I literally was just forced to wear a dress to every wedding, every baby shower, bridal shower, everything. And there was a lot of weddings and a lot of baby showers and a lot of bridal showers because my dad's family is very, very large. So that for me was very dysphoric. It was very uncomfortable for me to be seen in a feminine way, to be forced to wear clothing that didn't align or match how I felt. And I didn't know that there was even a name or a term or an identity that fit with that. I just thought that I was insane, to be honest. And I just thought that I was going to be unhappy for the rest of my life, and I just had to settle for being a masculine presenting person. I was out as liking women, but that was as far as that went, and even that was very frowned upon within my family and everything. So when I came out, shit hit the fan. I'm going to cuss for you. I expected the absolute worst, and pretty much the only thing that didn't happen was my parents didn't drop me on my butt. But they absolutely did reject me and refuse to accept me as Lucas, call me my name, use my pronouns, anything like that for 6 years. So, and that was 6 years of being around them, seeing them every day, living with them. It was absolute rejection. It wasn't like an adjustment period. It was, I refused to make this attempt to call you Lucas and use your pronouns. Even when I was presenting and living like I look today, right? So they just came around literally 3 summers ago, almost exactly 3 years ago, and that was really amazing when they did come around. But it's been an interesting shift for me with gender roles because I grew up with pretty much only women in my life, other than my dad, and I was socialized female, right? So I had a lot of experiences, a lot of unfortunately negative experiences that women have. And then when I came out, not only am I very aware of like the experiences that my sisters have had and my mom has had and I have had, but I also am very sensitive to certain things that I know that women experience. So in kind of a humorous way, I've experienced the opposite side of thinking that at night, if I'm walking in Tampa and there's a woman walking by herself, I'm thinking, I want to make sure she gets to her car, right? But if I follow her to her car, that's really creepy, right? And then she's fearing me, right? So I'm very aware of those things, but it's a very interesting dynamic. It's a very interesting shift. I've been out for like almost 10 years now. It's still very interesting, right? It's still very new, some of it. But I try to use that to my advantage to make sure that I am, not only treating all the women in my life well and just women in general, but also knowing that, there are different experiences and that I am seen completely differently, especially as a white, presumably cis, which means not trans, male. So, when I'm in an elevator alone with a woman, I'm always trying to make sure I look like I'm doing something else because I don't want to try to make small talk with her, make her uncomfortable when I could be seen as a threat, right? Which is very humorous to me and everybody that I know. So, but you know, it's just unfortunately the way that some women have to live their lives, right? And have to just be extra aware. And I understand that, right? So that's kind of my experience from being on one side and then shifting to another, and kind of being hyper aware of those things, and how I kind of apply those to my experiences now as a man, and living with the privilege that I have, that I literally like transitioned into, and using that hopefully to my advantage to help other people, especially within the trans community. So yeah, that's about it. Does anybody have any questions or anything, or anything else you'd like me to share? Yeah. So I had top surgery. A lot of trans men don't ever have bottom surgery, even if they desire to, because right now we haven't advanced as far as we need to medically. So for trans women, the options are better for bottom surgery, but for trans men, not so much. A lot of risks, and the results really aren't worth the risk. So yeah, it's not necessary for me, especially because of the options. Yeah, but top surgery was completely necessary for me. Yeah, that was the main source of my dysphoria. Did you have a question as well?
So, when you have a discussion with a straight man,
That's a really good question, actually. I love actually talking about this. So I really don't like guys that much. No offense to any cis straight men in the room. But, you know, my experiences have shown me different sides of people, right? So a lot of times I'll be in a restaurant, or, you know, I'm a single guy, so I go out to eat a lot. I can't cook anything. And I'm always very observant of how other men are interacting with women specifically. And it's always very interesting to see things that I perceive as like super misogynistic, right? Or super like, if I was that woman, I would be like, I want to slap you in the face right now, right? And so I'm always very aware of those things. But even like going to a new barber and like sitting in the chair, and they like want to talk like dude stuff with me, and like the stuff that they talk about is just sometimes very, you know, and I'm not saying guys in general, but a lot of guys my age, right? Some of the things that they talk about, or the things that they say, are very like uncomfortable to me, and not only like can I not relate to, and sometimes I can't at all, but then sometimes it also really irritates me. Like, I'm like, why do you talk about women like this, or why do you talk about people like this, right? So it is very interesting. It's kind of very uncomfortable in a lot of ways, because they don't know, you know, my experience or where I'm coming from, and that can be seen as, you know, negative or feminine or gay or whatever, right? But at the end of the day, I don't care. Like, I'd rather call them out on their bullshit than, like, you know, than just pretend like I also want to talk like that, because I don't want to be disrespectful regardless of who's listening, right? But yeah, it's very interesting. Yes.
So, from a gender point of view, right, for this transition, you also have a lot of female, like you think about women,
Mm-hmm.
talk about women,
Yeah, and my friend also used to be my roommate. She would call me out on this a lot, just because she's also very aware of gender. We do similar work. She works with me at Metro, and she would always tell me, like, Lucas, like, you need to stop, you know, apologizing so much. You need to stop, you know, this or that, because it's very feminine, you know, and to me, it's like more than that, right? Like, when I'm walking in the grocery store and a guy bumps into me and I apologize, I get mad at myself, because you bumped into me. Like, I wasn't in your way. Like, stop pretending like you own the world, you know? And so that's that other, you know, experience of, like, being aware of the fact that I apologized to you because I was socialized female, and so I was taught to do that, you know? Even though I wasn't in your way. Like, you just didn't move, you know? Yeah, it's automatic, exactly. And so I'm very aware of those things, you know? And part of me tries to stop them, but other things, it's like, well, just means that I'm, like, a caring person, right? And I think about those things, yeah. Yep, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are things that, I mean, I don't know if I'm ever going to break, right, habits of, because that's how I was socialized and that's how I was raised, right? Yep. would be great to be on that level, right? To just like own the men in the world. Can we have that arranged? I'm just kidding. So to your first question, I definitely identify 100% as male. I don't even see myself as feminine. I don't even really express myself as feminine, although some people might say certain things are feminine about me. I don't identify as that. I don't feel that way. I feel I'm very stereotypical man, very stereotypical masculine. However, I do very much identify with the women in my life in the sense that I get along better with women, you know, things like that. Doesn't mean I'm any less masculine, but I do get along better, find more of a connection with women, and especially like romantically. I don't really jive with men. I don't usually have an emotional connection with men because there's a big difference there, right? And what I value and what I've been raised and and so it's different. And I have there's a barrier there for me for sure. Like even with friendships, right? In a lot of cases. And then the other question, I do education things on like gender and in inclusivity trainings at Metro, but no, I don't have the opportunity to train other men. But whoops, right? Like, let's have that arranged. No, but I do try to use my privilege, right, to call out people when they're saying things that are, really messed up. Or sometimes I'll do, maybe if I'm not comfortable saying something to a guy or saying something because of, you never know, if it's even safe, then maybe I'll tip the waitress a little more or leave her a note, right? Not leaving my number, not hitting on her, just a simple, like, actually letting her know that she's valued, right? And that, like, I saw that, because I think that goes much further than what they usually get, what a lot of women usually get as waitresses, right? Probably a number every, three single guys that they, wait tables for. And so I want them to know that, like, more than that, like, you're valued as a human, and I'm sorry that you have to put up with this on a daily basis, and, like, here's to your salary that's crap, right? So something like that maybe is how I work that, but no, I don't get to educate the other men. maybe that's my career, my own path, right? Yeah. There you go. All right, so you can be my manager then. We'll go on tour. Yeah, no, that's definitely, I love that. It's a unique, thought process to that for sure. So I try to do that, as I can in just kind of utilize my privilege, right, in that sense, on a daily basis. So, yeah. Any other questions or thoughts or anything? Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. So Metro, we were founded about 27 years ago as an HIV services organization when there was pretty much nothing around to serve the HIV community, and out of that came a lot of LGBT programs because the majority of people we were seeing were gay men in the LGBT community. So those were kind of our main two parts, were HIV services, which mainly consisted of case management, and LGBT programs. So over the years, we've grown. Our LGBT programs have grown. That's where I started. I started doing our youth programs and our trans programs about 4 years ago when we were a lot smaller than we are now. And then we've grown quite a bit in the past few years. So I've evolved like a Pokemon into like 4 different positions. And over the past 4 years, what we have now is we have a health center, a fully functioning health center with 5 providers. We do LGBT-specific primary care, but primary care for anybody. We just specify that our providers are actively working with and know how to treat LGBT patients and deal with the unique issues that we face. And then we do HRT care and trans care services for the trans community, which is my department, and other resources outside of the healthcare as well. We do STI treatment, we do HIV testing, Hep C testing. We have a sister organization that is in-house with us at all of our locations that does the actual HIV and infectious disease treatment. We just do their case management and all of that alongside it and connecting people to services. We have SAMHSA grants, we have behavioral health programs, we have substance use programs where people can come in if they struggle with substance use. They can benefit from groups and resources and free counseling that we have, but then also incentives on top of that for like coming to the groups and finding community that identify, and that program actually specifically targets the trans community and then minority populations. And then we have on our LGBT program side, we have youth programs, we have SAGE programs, which is elder LGBT programs. We have trans programs, we have social groups, we do like yoga, guided meditation at the community center at least weekly, but we have a couple different yogas that meet a couple times a week. What am I missing? We have acupuncture, so other wellness programs, right, at the community center. So in Tampa and St. Pete, we have both a health center and a community center. In Clearwater and Newport Richey, we only have health centers. So we don't have community center programs there right now, but not to say that we're not going to grow. But we don't have the space or the clientele to do programs at the moment. So I think that that's pretty much everything we do. I'm sure I'm missing some things, but that's kind of an overview of what we have. We do. We only receive funding pretty much for HIV services. We receive funding from the CDC, Ryan White, the health department. So all that goes to HIV services and HIV prevention. We don't have anything like for the trans community that's not living with HIV. We don't have any funding for our LGBT programs. Those are all funded by sponsorships and like our gala, our major fundraiser, things like that. People donating. So. I love my job. So I was brought on, my position was created for me 4 years ago, and every position since has been created for me, and then I created my department last year. So this is my third position, yeah. So this is the only metro with those 4 locations, and then we have a welcome center and a thrift store. But we are expanding. We were the second largest LGBT center in the country, but I think somebody else is coming. I think that we're third now, but we were second next to the LA center, so that was huge. So we have about over 200 employees now, and then all those locations, and our St. Pete center is 48,000 square feet. It's a really large center, and it was all just redone. So we have volunteers, yep. And if you want to volunteer, you can go on our website and apply to be a volunteer, and they'll send out opportunities for you to assist that. We really need volunteers. We use our volunteers. There's a lot of good stuff to do because there are certain things we just can't have any more staff for because, like I said, those positions are not funded, so we can only have so many paid staff. So, but we appreciate our volunteers. Yeah. You had a question in the back?
Yes. When you were talking about HRT, did you take, well, I take stuff to enhance myself or my ability.
Yep.
Did you take, or you're trying to come in?
Yeah, so I take hormones. So I take testosterone, managed by a physician, and to keep levels at that of any other male, and I'll take that for the rest of my life until depending on if I need less or more as I get older. There isn't a lot of research done on trans people being on hormones for like more than like 10, 20 years. Nothing bad is going to happen. It's just that they don't really know like the long term of, are you going to necessarily need to take it forever, this or that. And it's also different on both sides. So for trans feminine people, they might need less hormone blockers after a while. For trans masculine folks, we don't need a hormone blocker. But are we going to need more hormones in the future, or will it really matter? That kind of thing is up in the air.
Yeah, because for a male, after a certain age, you lose your testosterone.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's safer for maintenance.
Yep, absolutely. And so that's why, we know that as people get older, hormone levels vary anyways. And so I think that will also change, for trans folks. But at that point, it just depends. So chances are for trans masculine people, we'll need more testosterone. And then, for trans women, maybe they'll have less of a need for hormone blockers at least. But then they might want to continue estrogen. It just depends. Yeah, good question. Yeah, and HRT isn't just for trans folks. So, you bring up a good point of most, older men and some men even my age, have to take testosterone because of a lower, not having enough or a sufficient amount of testosterone. So, yeah. Anything else? Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I think I might leave this a little tall because you are tall, Barbara. Thank you very much for that, Lucas. And thank you, everybody, for the questions. I love when people participate. Right now, we're going to welcome Barbara to the stage.
Hello. I'm Barbara Terry, and I'm an auditing student at St. Petersburg College. Now, the auditing program is for men and women who are 60 or older, and they get free classes at the school. There's no tuition. And I've been going for several years now. One of my professors, a public speaking teacher, said, I want you to talk about a culture that is different from your own. And I chose the culture transgender women. Now, some of you may know who this is. That is Bruce Jenner. In the 1960s, he was a very popular athlete. Now, she is Caitlyn Jenner. She's a television personality, and she is a trans woman. So this is the same person. When you first heard about that, probably read it in the news, you might have thought, well, that's different. That's really rare. But actually, the New York Times reports that right now, in the United States, there are 1.4 million transgender persons. So it's not as rare as you might think. For my talk on transgender women, I interviewed two women. They were born little boys, but now they are female. I asked them three questions. Number one, at what age did you realize that you were a girl but with a boy's body? Number two, how did you change your name from a masculine name to a feminine name when you became a woman? And number three, the most important question, what do you want out of life as a transgendered woman? Now, I'm going to call these women Mary and Susan, but that is not their real name. I do that for security reasons because, unfortunately, there are hundreds of men and women who are murdered each year just because they are transgendered people. And I want to protect the identity of these two women I talked with. Mary told me, when did I know that I was a little girl? I remember I was 3 or 4 years old. I knew I was a little girl even though I had a boy's body. I played with doll babies. I liked my curly hair. I fussed when my parents got it cut short. I dressed in my sister's clothing. I didn't care a thing about toy trucks and the things that boys play with. I told my mom and dad, I'm a little girl. And they thought I was gay. But I was not gay. That was a mistake. I was a little girl in a boy's body. Now, the case of Susan was quite different. And I'm going to call her Kenneth because I'm going to talk about her as a man. Kenneth didn't know anything about the trans culture at all. He just figured he was a sissy. He'd been called a sissy all his life. The kids in school called him that, in college. When he was a man, they noticed that he was very effeminate, and so he accepted that name. I have a sissy personality. Well, when he was in his 50s, a friend had him take a test on the computer, a test that showed what a person's gender was. And he learned that he was 90% female. And that inspired him to become a woman. That meant he had to take, he had surgeries, he had to take hormones, he had to take psychological training. That's just a few of the things you have to do to change your gender. So, the women were talking about how they changed their names. I thought that was kind of interesting, how you choose your name, different from the ones that your mom and dad gave you at birth. And in both cases, these women chose names completely different from the ones that they were born with. In other words, Henry didn't become Henrietta. However, the opposite is also true. A lot of women, trans women, do want to remember their childhood, and Charles becomes Charlene, and Robert becomes Roberta. So, the most important question I asked these two women, what do you want out of life now that you are female, that you're women? And they both said the same thing. We want acceptance. We want you to know that we are normal women. We deserve respect. And I do respect them. They happen to be my friends now after the interviews. I like them very much. One is a school teacher in Clearwater, and one is a registered nurse in the hospital. So that's just a little bit of the information about trans women. I hope you've learned a little bit about the subject. I'm Barbara Terry, and thanks for listening.
Thank you very much for that, Barbara. Okay, now Miss Magda, if you will come back to the stage for our meditation. And Peter, will you do me a... Actually, no. I think I got it. Magda, do you have your own music, or any music okay, or just any music's okay? Thank you, Magda. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Miss Lulu. So, this meditation, it's going to be a sacred marriage of the male and female. So tonight, every side, they both.